Roofman is a real surprise of a film. It's a film by Derek Cianfrance, which, if you were to believe the marketing materials, would likely appear as a flat-out comedy. For the uninitiated, the film is about the real-life robber dubbed the Roofman, Jeffrey Manchester, following his break from prison and the aftermath as he lays low in a Toys R Us. Roofman is mostly focused on the nice vibes of the true story of Jeffrey Manchester. Although one could emphasize the crime thriller elements of the Roofman story, Cianfrance decides to opt for more of a heartwarming tale of a guy who just so happened to do the wrong things in life. The Manchester in the film even narrates as such throughout. It is the story of an escaped con, this inherently having a high stake factor which keeps audiences invested, but it's not necessarily about that. The film is a doomed romance story at its heart and, paired with its light-hearted humanist comedy, becomes an unexpected rom-com, subverting well-worn tropes. In that way, Roofman feels like a relic from a bygone era, a mainstream star-led studio comedy, that genre being seemingly resurrected this year, as I brought up in my review for good fortune. And if we continue that train of thought surrounding the mid-budget studio comedy, Roofman is very clearly a Channing Tatum star vehicle. It takes the comedic character, which built his early career, and makes him an emotionally resonant leading man, with floor work which the audience can't help but root for. The emotional baggage he carries from scene to scene, opposed to the moments where he's allowed to goof off, really ground the extraordinary true story and avoid it from being reduced to a celluloid Wikipedia article where all the audience gets out of it is just an apathetic, huh. Suffice to say, this is the perfect kind of a role for Tatum in my opinion, and he suits it to a T. The other half of the rom-com dynamic is Kirsten Dunst as Lee, a single mother with two daughters with whom the conflict of will she find out and what will she do when she finds out is played through. I won't lie, there doesn't seem to be a lot to the character. Coincidental how I've said that twice this month with romantic interest characters in biopics. She is serviceable, there are ways in which her character interweaves with the crime genre at the heart of the film, which spruce her character up a little and make her a conflicted character, enabling for the audience to be more engrossed in conflict and arcs. The film also has Peter Dinklage, Lakeith Stanfield, Juno Temple, and Ben Mendelsohn to fill out the comedic world of the film. They all pull their weight as talented comic character actors, but barely enough time is spent on any of them for them to come across as layered characters. Don't get me wrong, they have screen time and they leave their mark, but it's more from personal charisma rather than the comedy on the page. The most notable is Lakeith Stanfield, who has proven over the years to have this incredible presence, which Cianfrance uses to the film's advantage, in order to tap into the mysterious facets of the crime genre, which is where the film hits its stride. Now, I haven't seen either of Cianfrance's other films. I intend to, just haven't gotten around to them yet, but knowing that he was the filmmaker behind The Place Between the Pines and Blue Valentine was certainly interesting, to say the least. If there's anything I know about those two films, it's that they're dark, they're depressing, and they're heavy thematically. Roofman is deceptively so, hiding behind the disguise of the ludicrously true story and narration from Tatum's Manchester. It's a surprisingly somber film about people who just can't help but make the wrong decisions in life, even those who are kind and intelligent people underneath the monikers and criminal histories. This is my favourite element of Roofman, as the conflict seems to create itself from the base characterization and, furthermore, allows for some narrative beats to enter a state of the thematic heaviness I'd have expected from the filmmaker behind those two other films. But, alas, this film, like the Blockbuster video store and the Toys R Us featured within, is somewhat outdated. This isn't necessarily a diss against the film, but Roofman has the comforting nostalgia of an era-specific could-be blockbuster. On that front, Roofman is about 20 years too late, in my opinion. It's a nice callback, refreshing in the sea of modern cinema, but doesn't seem to hold its own as an individual narrative. For a true crime story, it is surprisingly breezy and chill, and is incredibly well suited for a reflection of the studio blockbusters we used to get annually. I say as if I remember those times. I don't. I was born later in that decade, but I have watched a lot of movies. The film looks great, especially for a comfy studio comedy. Shot on 35mm, the film just looks right, almost in a subtextual way. The way that film grain looks, with all of its imperfections that digital just can't quite replicate, is what cements Roofman in its setting of the early 2000s. It is the look one would expect from films of the era, and, even if you don't really notice it outright, I can attest that it does do the trick. Roofman, as I had stated earlier, has the apt vibe. You watch it and you are transported to that Toys R Us with Jeffrey Manchester, and it doesn't alienate like it would have if it were shot on a digital camera. A really minor detail, it's always fun to see Tony Revolori in anything, even if he's only in a minor role in the very beginning of a film where almost all of his lines of dialogue are revealed in the trailer. It's fun to see him at all after he saw the show in Grand Budapest Hotel. By the time the credits roll, and the film reminds you that this is, in fact, a true story, I thought the film was just kinda good. I liked it, but I find it hard to particularly recommend. As I brought up earlier, it's fun in a breezy way for the most part. Roofman? 3 stars. Well, that's all. Keep on watching movies, and form your own opinions. See you in the next one.